Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Welcome to the County Office Building in downtown White Plains. Today is Tuesday, January 23rd, and today we're going to be talking about environmental initiatives that matter here across the County of Westchester. The old phrase says that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the journey to try to right the things that are wrong in our climate involves thousands and thousands upon steps. And we have a long way to go as a nation and as a world, and within the county government, we're a small part of that, but we're trying to show that we're making discernible steps in the right direction. We're not there yet. We've got a long way to go, but we're making strides in the right direction. And this conversation is to talk about one of those steps that we're announcing today, and I'm joined by a number of important people around me who are here for this announcement. They all play a role as part of the environmental strategies that we have across Westchester County. I'm joined, of course, by our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins. We have our first Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Environmental Facilities, Lou Vitrone, and he'll be here to talk about our textile recycling expansion program. We're joined by Peter McCart, who's our Director of Energy, Environment, and Sustainability, and he sort of heads up these programs for us here. Also with us today in the audience is a former State Senator, Elijah Reichlin-Melnick, who is the Assistant Director in Sustainability. We have with us here the Sustainable Westchester Executive, Noam Bramson. He was with us many times before in his prior capacity as Mayor of the City of New Rochelle, and we're very happy that he's one of the leaders in the environmental movement now within one of those not-for-profit organizations. We're joined also by Rya Salter, who is an environmental justice advocate, very prominent, not just at the county level, but at the state level, and with national involvement in environmental advocacy, and also by Carol Capobianco, who is head of the Native Plant Center based at Westchester Community College, and that is also an important part of our energy and initiative. With us here in the studio is Melissa Rattini, who is one of the leaders as well in the Department of Environmental Facilities, and there are many other people, many other environmental organizations who all contribute to the environmental strategies here in the county. Those from Federated Conservationists of Westchester County, Riverkeeper. Tracy Brown is president of Riverkeeper. She's an important ally as well. And it's important for me to emphasize as we talk about what's going to what we're doing here in the county government. This is not about an environmental movement by the county government. The county government is a player in a list of a host of different players, not-for-profit organizations, local governments, a host of different civic organizations, each of which contribute significantly to the things that we have to do in climate change. And as I've said just a second ago, it's very important to understand this is a long journey, and we're just embarking on it step by step with the things that we try to do. Right now, the Westchester County Department of Environmental Facilities, under the leadership of our Commissioner, Vincent Capicchi, and then, of course, the aforementioned Lou Vitrone and Assistant Commissioner Melissa Rattini, is now offering a textile recycling program that will allow municipalities to provide curbside textile services to all residents. What we have seen over the years is that the easier we can make it for people to properly dispose of any product, and particularly in a curbside setting, the more compliance we get. The more products that are recycled, the less products that we have going into our waste stream. The service that we're launching enables residents to schedule for free pickup appointments on designated service days, and it's aimed at encouraging people to do things such as dispose of clothes, shoes, towels, rugs, and other textile materials, which is a significant portion of our waste stream. Now, the traditional recycling, we go back almost 40 years from curbside recycling of paper, plastic, metal, glass, things of that nature. We have to go well beyond that if we're going to try to take things out of the waste stream. And so this is one of those major efforts that have happened. We're very happy that we've been able to, as a county government, with the leadership of the people in the Department of Environmental Facilities and those out in the advocacy community, has come up with a way to do this. We all have proper aspirations. We all want to see things better, but it still takes people who understand how to actually accomplish the mission at hand and not just talk about the mission at hand. Those results are really what matters. If you look at the sweep of the last few years, we're very happy that we were able to expand our infrastructure for electric vehicle charging stations. Some of those charging stations we need internally because of our fleet of cars and also the buses, which we'll talk about in a second, but also to be able to put some out in public domain on county property, and now with what's been put in the budget for 2024 to help incentivize some communities as well, give them additional resources to help them expand electrical vehicle charging stations and other infrastructure. We've lowered the power usage in our county buildings. The demand response efforts, which we've highlighted before, publicly have not only reduced the amount of energy that the county as a user of energy has draws from the grid, but also returns money to us. We get money back when the utility companies do not have to buy electricity at a premium at times of peak demand, and the money that they say they share some of it back with users. We're a big user, and so we've able to see revenue come in to the tune of $1.5 million over the life of this program, which has been over the last few years. We have electrified our bus fleet. The 300-plus buses of the B-Line bus system are no longer on diesel. They are electric, hybrid electric, and so that has the advantages of using less fossil fuel. It also has the ability to run cleaner. And when we talk about the issue of environmental justice, Rya has been very articulate on this issue. One of the things we're doing is we're reducing the diesel exhaust in urban settings. When you go into the Mount Vernons, the White Plains, the Yonkers of the world, where there are lots of different bus routes and different buses use the same depot, every time they exhaust diesel fumes, that adds to the pollution of the air. And the children who live in that area, many times children of color, are affected by asthma, and that amount of pollution in the air is now taken out by us being able to move to electric vehicles. And of course, we have the aspiration to see that happen with all school buses in the county, which primarily affect towns and villages in that area. We've signed a number of different pieces of legislation into law. Westchester County legislators, Erica Pierce and Nancy Barr, took leadership in a single-use plastics item on request law, which passed last year. We've had a lead-free water bill in county parks that passed. The effort to try to research and be more specific about additional things we can do in disadvantaged communities on asthma, a renewable energy database, Equality Environmental Legislation Act. These 5 pieces of legislation all passed the county government in the last year. Now we have to implement it. We have to make sure that the results follow the legislative action. Some of these bills are things that are being discussed and debated in Albany, which we here in Westchester County have moved ahead to implement. But our environmental activities include more than just our transportation function and our environmental facilities function. I want Ken Jenkins to talk a little bit about how we try to make the air cleaner by the way we keep land preserved through our park system. Ken?
Thanks, George. And this administration's and our administration's effort has extended to our award-winning, nationally accredited county park system. So the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Conservation, under the leadership of Commissioner Kathy O'Connor and First Deputy Commissioner Peter Tartaglia, have completed numerous projects to advance the county's environmental efforts. Those include initiatives such as the Hudson River Fishing Advisory Work and the Flora of the Ward Pound Ridge Project and a turtle monitoring project at Ward Pound Ridge Reservation. In collaboration with our Soil and Water Conservation District, that's resulted in tree planting at Saxon Woods and soil sampling at multiple county parks. The Parks Department has also been at the forefront of electrification efforts, replacing noisy polluting two-stroke engine equipment with battery-powered alternatives. And Parks has entered into a partnership with organizations like Perfect Earth Project and involvement with the Lower Hudson Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management, showcasing the county's commitment to best practices and invasive species management. And that included certainly with the vacuum cleaner scenario that we loaned out to local municipalities to take care of that invasive species bug that we had happening. So we'll go back to you, George.
I'm going to ask some of our guests here to talk a little bit about some elements of this program. First up will be Lou Vitrone, who, as First Deputy Commissioner of DEF, is the person who has to take a great idea and, working with Commissioner Vince Capicchi, turn it into reality. So we're very grateful for the operational skill that Lou and Melissa and Vince and the rest of the senior team at DEF has. So if you talk a little bit about the textile recycling expansion, Lou, if you would.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you, County Executive. Good afternoon, everyone. So at the Department of Environmental Facilities, we're extremely proud of the waste reduction we've been able to achieve. We've achieved a 28% reduction in waste disposed since our peak, and much of that reduction is due to the leadership of the County Executive and the new and innovative programs we've been able to introduce over the past 6 years. It includes the Residential Food Scrap Transportation and Disposal Program, under which the county subsidizes the cost of collecting food scraps from voluntary drop-off sites run by the municipalities. And the cost is reduced so much so that all communities can offer this program now to their residents. It includes our composted facility, which opened a couple of years ago, and in Valhalla. It's not only an operating compost site, but it also acts as a demonstration site to inform municipalities on how they can incorporate food scrap recycling into their own organic recycling yards. It also includes installation of new automated sorting equipment at our material recovery facility, our MRF, in Yonkers. And by adding more and more automated equipment there, we're able to remove more contaminants from our recycling and offer a more desirable product to ensure that the county's recyclables are desirable to recycling companies. And now, as the county executive said, we are really excited to offer curbside textile recycling. And as the county executive said, the easier and the simpler you can make these programs, the more buy-in we get from residents. So this is a very simple program. Once, it's going to be open to all the communities and all the municipalities in the county. When they sign up and they start participating in the program, they will be given designated collection days for curbside textiles, and all their residents will have to do is to register to leave their material curbside. The only thing they need to do is put it out at the curb, and it will be collected. This program, I have to tell you, has the potential to really move the needle on waste reduction, because it's estimated that between 6 and 9% of the county's waste stream is made up of textiles. So there is really a potential here to move that needle. And as the county executive said, we're not done. We're working every day on devising new strategies for waste reduction and offering new programs. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank County Executive Latimer, Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins for their continued support and commitment to waste reduction and recycling. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Lou. Our next speaker, Peter McCart, during the duration of these years has headed up our sustainability efforts. I just want to highlight just a quick anecdote as I introduce Pete. I remember when they had the first significant regulation for recycling coming in back in the late 1980s, and that's when you had to separate, as I said a second ago, paper from metal, glass, plastic, and so forth. My mom was still alive at the time, and I visited her and my dad in their home down in Mount Vernon. And when I went in, my mother was taking a jar that she had washed out, and she was ready to put it in the trash. And I said, "Mom, you can't do that. You have to recycle it." And she looked at me. She said, "What are you talking about? Recycle what?" I said, "Oh, there's a new law now. You have to be able to do this." And she said, "I've been doing it this way for however many years she was at the time, 55, 60 years. I said, "Well, Mom, we have to do it differently." In that moment, I realized that as much of environmental effort is not only about the science, and it isn't only about the laws that you pass, but it is how well you communicate with people to help them understand the lifestyle changes that you have to go through. My mom had to understand that she couldn't take the glass jar and throw it in the garbage can along with other things, that she had to take glass and plastic and so forth and segment it. This initiative on textiles will work if people understand that it might be easier to throw things in the garbage can as a universal way to get rid of something. But if they segment it and we can pick it, collect it, and get it to a location so it's not used as part of the trash system, then we will advance the environmental issues. Now, why is that a good leader for Peter McCart? I met Peter a number of years ago when I was a state senator, and I would go to community meetings. I go to a lot of community meetings, and people say, "Why do you keep going to these meetings? What's the purpose?" You don't know what the purpose is until you go. You hear what's being discussed, you learn something, and then you meet people. The meeting that I went to is the Eastchester Environmental Committee, where a resident of Eastchester, Peter McCart, was named as head of that committee. I had a chance to talk to him. I saw his energy level. I realized he had a similar background to mine, coming out of a sales and marketing career experience, not necessarily an environmentalist or a scientist. But I recognized that it would take a good salesman to sell people on the lifestyle changes that you need in order to have environmental things happen. So I'm very happy that Peter's been on board along with Elijah. They form a very formidable team, and I'd like him to discuss a little bit about our efforts and our certifications. Pete.
Thank you, George. County Executive.
George is fine.
I believe it's worth noting that Lou Vitrone, First Deputy Commissioner of DEF, is a past president and current board member of the Solid Waste Association of North America, New York chapter, and is a current board member of the Federation of New York Waste Associations. He's also sits on the technical committee of the Waste to Energy Association, Melissa Rotini, a DEF Assistant Commissioner, is on the board of New York State Association of Solid Waste Management and a board member of the New York Product Stewardship Council. Both Melissa and Lou sit on the Technical Advisory Committee for the Regional Waste Movement Study. I want to learn more about that, actually. And since we're at it, among many other boards and commissions, Director of Operations Joan McDonald is the co-chair of the Transportation Committee of the New York State Climate Assessment, and I am the vice chair of the New York State Association of Counties Climate Action Standing Committee. And I only said this because I want to show some of our bona fides for what you guys do, and it's all great. Over the past 6 years, the county has received certifications as a green purchasing community, which we announced about a month or so ago. We're also a certified climate smart community, bronze certified, through the state's Department of Environmental Conservation. Certification for both of these programs is rather difficult for a county of this size, but it further showcases Westchester County's dedication to sustainability. During his time here in office, County Executive Latimer has signed crucial environmental legislation, as he just mentioned, and I'm not going to go through them again. Under the guidance of the County Executive, the county has additionally initiated efforts like the electrification of Westchester County's car and bus fleet, as he mentioned. And I think it's worth noting that every bus in the B line is now electric or electric hybrid, and then maybe, George, you mentioned that, saving millions of dollars on gas and helping to make Westchester's airs cleaner, as he mentioned as well. Our move to electric transportation includes legislation now mandating that any vehicle, and this has been for a while, this has been for about 3 or 4 years, purchase must be electric when there is a model available. We're waiting for these new models to come out, especially in the truck category. And we also have some very innovative legislation that ensures that 20% of all spaces in parking lots or garages must be designated for EV charging whenever we're doing work on these lots and garages. EV charging infrastructure has also been expanded to the county parks and county-owned parking lots for our fleet, employees, and residents, with over 350 being added over the next 2 years. I was told it's going to be 400, but I'm going to say 350, and hope for the best. But the most exciting development was the recent announcement of the Municipal Electric Vehicle Charging Grant Program. It's a mouthful, where the county is contributing up to 50% of the cost of EV charging design, procurement, and the infrastructure needed. And this is for public parking in Westchester County's cities, towns, and villages. The county has also, as George mentioned, partnered with New Energen to implement a demand response program to draw down our electric use during the high peak times of summer and to enhance energy efficiency while earning money, as George mentioned. Other efforts include the green building benchmarking and the completion of our greenhouse gas inventory, both of which are helping the county better understand the emissions of buildings in the county and have significantly contributed to a more sustainable building environment. With Assistant Director of Sustainability, Elijah Reichlin-Melnick, we are excitedly finishing up our climate action plan. It's going to be released late this spring. And as the county executive is apt to say, the credit goes to the various departments and employees, and we've given some of those thanks out. DPW Commissioner Hugh Greachin, Deputy Commissioners Hernani de Almeida and Gail Katzman and their staff, as well as the good folk in planning, parks, and of course the DEF. And thank you very much. Lots of good and innovative initiatives are in the works, so stay tuned for the good news. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter McCart, head of our sustainability efforts. Now, next I'm going to call on individuals who are involved in not-for-profit organizations. I did not tip off either Rya or Carol that I'm going to invite them to say a few words, so think about think about that opportunity. But I'd like you to have an opportunity to share your thoughts. But our next speaker is a longtime friend, and he is now head of Sustainable Westchester, which is the central organization that we have partnered with to do many of these initiatives. Noam Bramson has had a public career in office, making decisions in the third largest government in Westchester County, the city of New Rochelle, 90,000 people. And he's shown that he can do things on the firing lines, and now in this role, advocacy in general. And let me say that this applies to the other people who will speak after him. Those folks who are in the not-for-profit world are an essential part of this happening. This is not government does this and then these folks are over here. This is happening as a partnership. And I might add that the handshake that happens when somebody says, good job, you've done this, is also what an advocate does to pull you further, to make you go further into projects, to look for the next round of things that we need to do. That is what Noam, that is what Rya, and that is what Carol and all the other advocates and all the other organizations are seeking to do, to pull us further. We look at Putnam and Dutchess and Rockland and Nassau, but we have our own schedule of where we can go. And if we can do it, and we can do these things, sustainable Westchester, then there can be a sustainable Erie County, a sustainable Albany, ultimately a sustainable New York, and then by extension, a sustainable United States of the America. So, Noam Bramson, the new Executive Director of Sustainable Westchester. Welcome. Nice to have you back.
Thank you very much, George. And, the county executive alluded to this a moment ago. It's not my first time in this room. It's not my first time at this podium, but it is my first time in this new role. And it's a sign of my newness that I'm still dependent on notes, although I hope to graduate from that reliance before too long. And let me say that it really is a privilege and a pleasure to be here on behalf of Sustainable Westchester. I'm honored that you've chosen to include us in this announcement. I think we often think of environmental action as necessary to avert bad outcomes, and that's true. The climate crisis is a challenge of overwhelming dimensions that requires multi-layered action if our children and grandchildren are going to inherit a sustainable world. And this is something George understands, and Ken understands, and Lou understands, and Pete understands, and our not-for-profit partners understand. It's also an opportunity to build communities that are stronger and healthier, more equitable, more resilient, to shape local and regional economies that are growing in a way that extend opportunities to everyone, and to support a higher quality of life. And doing all those things requires both leadership and collaboration. The county, this team, is clearly providing the leadership. This announcement is only the latest example of an administration that consistently recognizes and prioritizes environmental achievement. And we heard that litany of accomplishments from the entire team, which is truly impressive. Sustainable Westchester is here to provide the collaboration. We collaborate in the form of direct partnerships with the county on everything from the clean energy transition to green workforce development, which is led so ably by Bridget Gibbons. And we collaborate as a shared service, bringing to bear the combined energies of Westchester's cities, towns, and villages. And if you look at the effect of the county's achievements and our programming, from Westchester Power to Energy Smart Homes to solar to EV and much more, then our region, as George just said a moment ago, emerges as a true model. A model of governance, programming, services, and innovation for how all of New York State and all of America can make the most of this urgent moment. Thank you for all that you do, and I'm proud to stand with such a great team.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Next up, I'm going to offer the opportunity for Rya Salter and also Capobianco to share a few thoughts. I mentioned just a second ago about how I view advocacy as both an encouragement and a push forward that comes from people who are deeply committed. And this is true over a host of different areas of public policy. Rya's experience as an advocate and as a person involved in substantive dealings with government includes, as I said in the beginning of this, much bigger than county government. She's been an advocate on a state and federal level, testified before Congress, Congress dealt with state legislation in other states outside of New York. But it's an important thing for us to look at, because Westchester County has learned by watching other areas and determined where can we mirror the best practices that may be happening someplace else. I mentioned that some of the legislation that we passed last year were patterned off of laws that were pending in the state legislature, which we determined we had the power to do legally at the county level. Not all of them do we have that power to do, but we're able to find some and advance them. But being willing to go outside the 9 dots requires us to look at best practices all across the country. And so that advocacy is welcomed, and we very much appreciate that she took the time to be with us today. And I wanted to give the microphone over to Rya Salter for her thoughts. Rya.
No pressure, Rya. No, thank you so much, George. And yes, I'm Rya Salter. My organization is the Energy Justice Law and Policy Center. We are really interested in how we can have a just, clean energy transition in a way where communities have a say or really have a seat at the table in the decisions that are going to impact all of our lives. As part of my work, I was appointed by our great Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, to New York State's Climate Action Council. And to George's point about the tremendous leadership, the Climate Action Plan that came out of state planning had so many advanced suggestions on how state and local governments can take concrete action towards, addressing our climate goals. And so, yes, George mentioned the advocates. We push our local leaders. We are glad to bring the legislation, models. We want to see movement from our county government, and we know that we are able to implement that in New York State because leadership at the local level means concrete results for people's lives. So thank you. I'm just very excited. We're working on issues of air quality. We have a big air quality program coming out called the Air of Truth. We want everybody in Westchester County to understand what air quality is, what air quality disparities mean, and how we can come together to work on solutions. And we're delighted to partner with the county, with our other nonprofits, our state and local representatives on these issues. So that's it. Not prepared for a bunch of remarks, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Good job, Ryan.
For not being prepared, those were excellent remarks. Next up, Carol Capobianco again. I did not telegraph this, but at the moment seems to be right to include all the voices that we can. So perhaps, Carol, you can share a little bit about your energy and your efforts on the environment.
Thank you, County Executive. This is a wow moment for me because the county is doing amazing things. Peter, Ken, I love hearing about the landscape part of it, the parks involved, and Lower Hudson Prism and Perfect Earth Project, which we're involved with as well. I'm Carol Capobianco. I'm the director of the Native Plant Center at Westchester Community College. And the college has an opportunity there to work with the next generation of conservation leaders, right? Because they're all college students. So it's wonderful. We have our gardens there. And from day one, the county executive understood and listened to the environmental community and gathered us through the Federated Conservationists of Westchester. And he actually passed an executive order for planting native plants on county property, which we totally appreciate and really knew from that day on he was going to be open to many different suggestions. And as you heard today, there's so many great projects going on for climate change and beyond. So we hope that, and we heard through Ken Jenkins, that the Parks Department is involved. Remember Planting Westchester that the county executive came up with, which is a move to say, get out there and plant, because remember that's part of the climate change as well. The help and the mitigation for it is trees and other plantings. And as we see a lot of flooding problems happening, people building in the floodplains, they forget about the natural resources we have. And I know that this government and this county is really in the forefront of doing that, and I really appreciate their partnership and willingness to listen. Thank you all.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. So just to wrap up our time together, we recognize that there's many more things that we need to do. This initiative today of textile recycling, we think is a big step forward. Lou talked about what a large percentage of our waste stream textiles represent. And so if we can effectively get the message out to households all across this county that they now can recycle those products rather than putting them in the trash, we will significantly improve the reduction in waste. We'd love to get to the point of zero. I believe we're doing some work now to try to bring on board a consultant to study how we can make significant additional reductions in the amount of trash that we develop, and through that process get us a little bit closer to where we want to be. It is important to note that the county government has set aside resources in our budget, affordable, even as we deal with taxes and so forth, affordable allocations of money, but we do need support from the state government and the federal government. We had a bond act that passed a year ago in November, $4.2 billion set aside for a host of different environmental projects. All of us in our world outside of government put our shoulder to the wheel to have that referendum pass, and we look forward for that money to be made available in projects that will be concrete and helpful in advancing these things. And of course, the federal government passed a bipartisan infrastructure act. Many of the things we need to do involve hardening and improving our infrastructure and trying to make sure that the resources at the state and the federal level come down to the very specific projects that will make things better in all of this. I mentioned the anecdote about being with my mother, and of course that anecdote goes back almost 40 years ago. I think any of us do of a certain age, if you have grandchildren, you think about now I have an 8-year-old granddaughter, 6-year-old grandson, and I think about the world that they will live in when they are in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s. And I recognize, given life expectancy, I won't be around by then. But it's important to understand that the decisions we make today are going to affect their lives. And I have a personal sense that when they sit and they talk about their grandfather who had a moment in time where he had some influence in a county government or whatever else it is that we all wind up doing, I want them to know that we understood the crisis. We didn't ignore it. We understood how urgent it was and that we did the things we could do. And I hope that every grandfather and every grandmother out there understands that, because it's not enough for us just to consume the products of the world that we live in at the moment. We have to be thinking about the next generation, the generation after that, and then the one after that. If we do the right things today with energy and with urgency, we'll get to a good end result. If we ignore it, if we put it off, we'll pay a fearful price. I personally may not pay that price given longevity, but somebody will. And they won't forgive us for it if we don't address it. So let us do everything we can do on that journey of 1,000 miles. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for watching, and most importantly, recycle your textiles.